Oh, you ready? Okay. All right, I'll call this meeting of the General Government and Finance Committee to order at 6 o'clock. This meeting has been given public notice in accordance with Section 19.83 and 19.84 Wisconsin statutes in such form that will apprise the general public and news media of subject matter that is intended for consideration and action. Roll call, all members are present. With that, we'll move to the approval of the minutes of February 21st, 2022.
Motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there any discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment. Is there anyone here online for public comment? Are we online? Okay, thank you. If not, we will move to new business. Police Department Communication Officer wages.
Thank you. The reason I'm before you today is to request that we look at the wages for our dispatchers. We recently lost one of our dispatchers to Washington County. We've had that position posted for 2 weeks now. I'm not taking a single application. What we're finding is that our starting pay is considerably less than the surrounding agencies. We're at, I believe, 1927. As an example, Washington County is starting out at 25 right now. What we're using is a scale that had come from their, when they were a bargaining unit, and it's a 7-step scale. And right now, it starts at 1987. Starting pay is $25.76. What I'm looking at for right now, at least, is that starting pay, and hoping to start them out closer to step 4 at that $22.77 range, which we can handle in our budget right now. The problem is, I was talking to Mequon, and it took them a year to replace their vacancies. They ended up having to dispatch their third shift through Ozaki County for a while. They were having so much difficulty, and I think we're just going to have a real challenge replacing that spot with the wage that I'm offering right now. We have some different things that we want to try posting in different ways, but right now I think as long as that wage is what it is, I'm gonna continue with that challenge.
Ready? Yeah, Terry.
Chief, what does the communications officer all do?
So our officers, in addition to taking call and dispatching calls, each have individual assignments. Some of them are assigned to open records requests and discovery requests, where they're filling those open record requests, making DVD copies for the DA's office, any number of things dealing with any type of open records that comes in. Some of them are assigned to entering warrants, keeping that warrant list active. Some are assigned to the property room, assisting with the property room, taking in evidence, taking in different photos that come in, and properly inventorying those photos. They're all kind of backup clerks. If we're down one, they're expected to
So they
type
do
reports.
clerk work as well as dispatch?
That's correct.
So when
And
the phone call comes in to the police department for an emergency or whatever, they answer it.
That's correct.
And they dispatch, and they do all this other work.
Yes,
That's a lot of work.
it is. And
It's
some
a really important job, too.
Absolutely. And some agencies, that position would be strictly a call taker and a dispatcher. With us, they do a lot of different assignments in addition to the call taking and dispatching.
May I ask, I see the starting rate here is 19, it says 87 in our packet. What is the range? Like your most experienced one? I mean, how high does it get up to? I guess is my question.
So our top paid dispatcher right now would be earning, well, it was $25.76 at the end of last year. With the raises, I would have to check that, but
That's
in
okay.
that general
And how
area.
long has that dispatcher been on?
Well, those dispatchers have all been 10 plus years.
Okay.
The scale that they were working off was a 7-year scale, though, to get up to that top pay.
So we increase this to 2277, as you would like. Will the other dispatchers be okay with that? Do they need a consummate increase, or how are we going to handle that?
I talked to all the dispatchers about this before I brought it forward. They understand the need to raise that starting pay. That top pay, again, we're dealing with, and it's having a snowball effect. Fond du Lac County Consolidated, their top pay is now $30-some an hour. They were basically stealing dispatchers from Washington County, for lack of a better word. Washington County went back and had their wages adjusted, so now their top pay is $30 an hour. West Bend is the same. So we're all kind of in this competition for a real limited pool of people that want to get into dispatching right now.
That would take an intense job like that. Yeah.
Correct.
And you think 2277 will do it for starting?
I think that puts us much closer
Competitive.
to our comparables and what they're offering for that starting
Okay.
wage. And I think it'll certainly help us attract some candidates.
Okay. I'm sure we'll have more discussion. I'm going to go ahead and make a motion that we increase the starting wage for the communication officers to 2277 per hour.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion to increase the pay to $22.77 per hour. Discussion. Trustee Myers.
Chief, at 2277, where does that put us? In the middle
I would say
or a little less?
Still on the lower.
I'd say pretty close to the middle. There's still some that are going to be lower. Washington County is still considerably higher. They're starting at 25. I think Mequon is starting possibly a little lower than that, actually, at like 2150. West Bend, I believe, is close to that, but tops out quite a bit higher. But the starting pay at least puts us definitely in that mix.
The example I would give, naturally, has nothing to do with it, but Milwaukee is short 50 dispatchers. So I don't know what they pay, but it's a struggle
And
all over. It can be a tough job.
Yeah. Milwaukee considerably increased their wages as well recently.
And the other thing I was going to mention about Aaron, if this be something that to do a study on, one of the things we want to have, we talked about, Steve, is retention, that particular word. I'd like to see us do a study, have Aaron do a study in regard to this. This is a good starting point, but I think we need to address this even further along with the other people who are higher. I know what you mentioned about the other dispatchers and such, but that's not really fair either. So I'll shut up for a moment. Let Aaron.
Well, and when making the motion, if you could instead not make the motion for the specific dollar amount, but for the range, so to put them in category 2 in our ranges, so that can change.
No, those
Okay, so that would be 2 would be 44,318 to 60,277, and that gives us room so that we can
So what
do.
would that range be per hour?
Sorry.
2277 to what?
2080.
Right.
What's the low?
Yeah, so the minimum would start at 47,000. So you just want to know the max would be.
Yeah, I don't want to
60.
jump from talking hourly rates and all of a sudden jumping annual.
Right.
Let's compare apples to apples.
Nope, I get it.
20.
At the 2259 is the low end.
Yep.
And
What you said.
so 6277. And 2898 would be the high end.
So instead of a dollar amount, you would rather have it as, is it category 2, position 2? I think it's here. It's
So in other words, if I may,
Yep.
just ask a question. So in other words, we might be starting somebody out at $27 an hour. That's not what my motion was at all.
Yeah, so like all the other positions, it would be within a range. And so if we are seeing that other municipalities, we wouldn't have to bring it back here just to give them a couple dollars extra to get them in the door.
As long as we can afford it, right?
Yes,
Without raising taxes, right?
of course.
Okay. Then that, I will amend my motion, if that's okay with the second.
It's all right with me. Terry.
My only additional question would be, is you're talking about something that you can give somebody, but when they're looking at what you are offering on the list, it's not going to show that. Is that correct or incorrect? You understand what I'm trying to say?
How you're advertising it.
Right.
We would advertise it as a range. So depending on their experience and what they bring to the table.
Was this something, I suggested about doing a study on this. You think it doesn't need to have that one? Or what you're asking would be enough to go in the right direction?
Well, if we wanted to do a study for comparables besides what was generally in the area, then yes, we would want to do that for all of the positions. But based on this last regional study that we did to get to where we are now.
That was
I
where you
would
come
say
up
that-
with those 16 areas?
Mhm.
Yeah.
The 8 area, yep.
And that took all the jobs to look at or to change them all?
This would have been included within that category, but
I see.
it was my mistake. I didn't realize that that was what the dispatcher position was. And so I took it out. And so we're just putting it back into where it needs to be.
Okay, well, if we're going the right direction, that's fine, because I certainly don't want to have a situation where we have to try to put extra work on other people who are already here because we don't have enough people,
Right.
and then maybe shove people out the door in the process and exasperate the thing and make it even worse. I don't want to see that.
Yep.
You know, I would just add that I think to Trustee Meyer's point, and it is something that actually Aaron and I had a brief conversation on it this morning, looking at retention. It is going to be a challenge with all positions, I think, you know, and it's not just at the village, but right now it is a difficult time to retain employees. Wages are going up, you know, fairly quickly. And you know, municipalities don't have the flexibility that you know,
Private.
a lot of other organizations do. So it is something that we are working on that. We're looking at that, and you know, anticipate we'll be coming back to the committee with some more information, some more analysis and thoughts over the next few months.
The only other thought was in regard to this, because last month, watching the business news and so on, as you talked about, there were 300 million people that actually changed jobs last year to get more money. I don't have anything else.
Okay, Trustee Kaminsky.
Just a comment on what you just said, Steve, is that it's one of the reasons I really didn't care for some of the HR bullets that are your goals, because they're very difficult in this climate. And I'm personally not going to judge you on that, because it suggests that, hey, let's just throw more and more money at it, because that's the only way we're going to retain an employee, potentially. And I don't think that's fair in this climate that we're in right now with inflation and job change and everything else. And I don't want to just throw more money at it to retain employees either. So just a comment.
Right, any other questions, comments? I mean, I agree with everything that's been said here. You know, when you have Social Security adjustment of 5.9% this year, we're going to have some big challenges when it comes budget time. There's going to be a lot of adjustments. I think this is just the tip of the iceberg on this. All right, if there's no other comments, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, with that, we will move to bond authorization. And Steve, are you going to set this up or set us up? Or-
Just seeing if we can get our presentation up. But yes, I will, so let me turn the microphone off. And I'll drive the slides here. We have Jonathan Schatz from Ehlers with us again this evening. And this is our annual bond issuance that we're coming forward with. Except there are some significant differences from what we've done in the past. And Jonathan is going to get into that in more detail. But this is just to kind of clarify, this is the first step in the process that we're coming to present this information to GGF with the plan that we would have the actual resolutions that are being prepared by the village's bond council before the village board at the next meeting. So this is not just an informational item. It is something where we are looking for action from the committee to move this forward to the village board. The light's got to be off for it to be on.
All right. And as Trustee Myers pointed out, Phil's finding all kinds of reasons to avoid these meetings, but he is triple booked tonight. So no. You can go to the first slide here. So as Steve mentioned, just giving an introduction here to the financing plan that we have for the village this year. And one of the major differences is that we're going to propose issuing 4 different bond issues. And so the first 2 slides here are just going through the 4 different issues and the different purposes for them. The first one, which will be called 2022A, is $4.3 million, and it'll be GO notes, which have a maximum term of 10 years. And this will be financing essentially more of the annual capital needs for the village, just over $3.5 million in capital projects, and then $700,000 for the recreation trail in TID 7. That portion of this issue will be paid back by increment from TID 7, and we'll look later at the cash flow for TID 7 to show how that goes. So again, just the 10-year GO notes for the A issue. 2022B is a taxable GO notes issue. This is just over 2.5 million, and this will finance the escrow for the Capstone Quadrangle development in TID 7. So this was something that we were required through the development agreement. If Steve wants to add to.
I'm sorry. I didn't do a real good job with the introduction. I was just thinking of some other key points that I probably should have gone through before Jonathan started. There's several things that we're financing through this bond issuance that Jonathan is laying out. One is our regular annual capital budget that the village board adopted last fall of roughly $3.5 million worth of projects, road paving, building maintenance, all of those kinds of things. Another thing that Jonathan mentioned is under the development agreement that the village board approved with Capstone Quadrangle out at Holy Hill. There's a $2.5 million payment to them where they're building some of the infrastructure, the road, the sewer, and the water, turning those things back over to the village. So that's included in here. Third, and this is spread out among several TID 6, TID 7, and the water utility. The cost of the well and tower that are going up on Rockfield Road. So those are included in, and there's some of that's being paid for by the water utility, and some of that is being paid for by the 3 tax increment districts. There's a split there. And then the fourth thing that he'll get to is financing to purchase the land for the DPW facility, which is another item that we'll be talking about at the full board this evening. So I'm sorry, I just wanted to interject that before Jonathan got further.
Don't want any surprises here. Okay, so that B issue is for the escrow payment to Capstone Quadrangle for TID 7, and again, that'll be paid with increment from TID 7, and those are 10-year taxable notes. The third one on the next slide, 2022C, is the water revenue bonds. So the debt service here will be paid by revenues from the water system, from the water utility. This is $4.27 million, and it finances $2.5 million for the well and tower, and then as Steve mentioned, $600,000 for TID 7. I'm sorry, it's all well and tower. Portion of which is being paid by water system revenues. A portion is being paid by TID 7. A portion by TID 6, and then we're also refinancing a 2005 water revenue bond, which we projected would save the village some money if we just threw that into this overall financing. So this is a 13-year bond. We've listed these TICs or true interest costs at the end of here, each one. This is, as of last week, essentially the rates that we know it. So this one showed 2.95 for the water revenue bonds, but it's, rates have been going up the last 2 months. It's just kind of the reality of the environment we're in. And so this is what, as of what we know. The fourth issue, go ahead. Sorry.
May I ask a question?
Yes.
Just to clarify, because I'm kind of confused.
Sure.
And Steve, I guess I'll direct this more at you. Bullet number 1, general obligation notes, the 4.3, that is our capital improvements, correct? That we have in our budget that we approved, or is it 3.5?
That is includes our capital budget, but it also,
700 is in there too? Is that what that, so that's a combination in that first one, but the 700 is really part of the TID.
it's being, that debt service will be, that portion of the debt service will be paid back for out of tax increment district revenues.
Okay, so they kind of, we threw an apple in with the orange there, kind of. A little
It
bit.
is this is presented the way the bond market works,
Yes.
not the way
Okay.
the village
Gotcha.
budget works.
But just so we're clear, we'll have to clarify this with
Yes.
the board too.
Yep, that's a really good point because it does get very
Yeah,
confusing.
because if it's TID, we don't worry about it too much.
Right.
When we see the big numbers, because we know what we're into on that. But so so actually it's 3.5 is what we approved for the capital improvements.
Right, and out of all of this that Jonathan is presenting, the only part of it that's levy supported is that portion for the capital budget. That's
That
3.5
is your
million.
starting line when you talk to the
All
village
right,
board.
good.
There we go. There we go.
Okay.
And when we look at the sort of summary tables in this presentation, we'll show the full principal and interest payment, but we always net out those revenues from the TID or other sources to show what's actually being levied for. So that fourth is the note anticipation note 2022D. That's related to the purchase of land for the DPW site. That's just structured as a 2-year note anticipation note that would be refinanced when we do the bigger financing for the DPW building. Kind of take all those things out together. So this is just kind of interim short-term financing. As far as timing and process, this is also going to include something that's a little bit different than what the village is used to. Timing wise, we'll have resolutions for the village board on April 4th. And what we've done, this is 4 different issues. They're all different credits, different securities are involved, but when an investor is looking to buy bonds, they're going to see Germantown 4 times. So the best thing to do in a busy market is to not compete with yourself. So what we've proposed is doing this, splitting the 4 sales over 2 different days. And we've also proposed doing what's called a parameter sale, which is fairly common in the state. And basically what this is at the April 4th meeting, and there's a little bit of a description in this packet, will come for the usual authorization resolution. And at that time, the village board would also authorize a set of parameters that we could use to sell these bonds. And then on the dates we've listed here, which are non-village board meeting dates, because village board meeting dates typically are very busy for sales in Wisconsin, we can have the sales. And they would just require approval through a signature from someone at the village, and that would be designated during that authorization process on the 4th. So it's essentially, a similar idea as usual. That we would have initial resolutions, and then there would be a sale day that takes place. The difference being that sale day won't take place on a village board meeting date. It would take place, in this case, on a Wednesday and Thursday.
So in the past, yeah, the bond was sold on the same day as the village board meeting, right? On a Monday, everything came through, and then that night we would approve it. This is to help the timing of the market a little bit better?
Correct. So it gives us the ability to sell these issues on days when not everybody else in the state is selling. So that's one. And 2, a little bit of flexibility to see if there's a world-changing event, which happens all the time now, we can kind of react to that in real time. So it's really trying to set up the village for the best possible interest in all 4 of these issues, not having to compete with too many different other communities. So you'll still receive all the same material that you would in a normal process, the sale day packets, you'll see all of that. It's just, we won't come to the village board to authorize the sale itself. That'll be done through a signature.
Okay.
And again, when we set the parameters on the 4th, that's the village board giving the authorization to sell these bonds as long as they meet all of those parameters, meaning, if there's savings involved, it has to hit those
Right.
saving marks. If
Gotta hit a
interest rate
certain-
requirements, yes, all of those different things will be laid forth in the resolution on the 4th.
Okay, thank you. Trustee Myers.
So maybe on the 27th, you'd have A and B, and then the 28th, C and D, as
I believe
example?
that's correct. Yeah, A and B and C and D, yeah.
Thank you.
That's really all, yeah, so that's really all I had about the parameter sale. If there's any other questions, I'm happy to answer them on that. The rest of this is really just looking through the numbers. This slide is the sizings of the 4 different issues, and there's a lot to look at here. So left to right, we have list of the projects and various cost of issuance and offsetting revenues, and then on the bottom, net bond size. So, and then those are then split up by the different purposes. So you can see the A issue, that 4.365, the B issues, the 2.575, C is 4.270, and then the D is the 4.53. This next slide is the base case. So this is just looking at the village's existing debt profile. And then this runs left to right. So on the left is the total principal and interest for all geo debt that the village currently has. And then there are these offsetting revenues from TID, impact fee, sewer, premium, and received on bids. And so you get to this net tax levy and then a tax rate all the way to the right. So that's how we sort of look at what the village is currently at. The next slide looks at the impact of on the left is again the existing debt in the blue, and on the orange on the right is the 2 geo issues that would like to sell this year. So the geo notes 2022A and the taxable notes 2022B, and those 2 columns are principal and interest for those 2 notes. And then you'll see there's the column called abatements. That's the TID 7 revenue that's paying a portion of 2022A. So that's netting out those revenues so that when we go to just to the right one column, you see that net tax levy. That's what the village will be levying for debt service.
If I could just interject on that one, if you look, and this is a little bit small even with my glasses on, but if you look at the levy change from prior year, it's the 3rd column from the right on this table, and it shows how the tax levy changes each year. You can see that even though this is to kind of get to Trustee Kaminsky's point about how the impact on the property tax levy, the property tax levy would still be going down each year in the future. Now, that doesn't take into account that there will be capital programs next year and the
Sure.
DPW building and all that.
On borrowing.
But just
yeah.
based on what you're doing here, the levy is still going down in future years for debt service.
That's right. That's correct. That's the key. Next slide is borrowing capacity, just looking at the village's geo debt capacity, and there's really no problem there. There's lots of capacity to borrow at this borrowing for A and B, which are the only 2 geo issues, it brings it up to 40% this year, and then drops down after that. So that's very good. And then the next couple slides are looking at the TID impacts. So TID 6, this is the TID 6 cash flow. So we've built in the repayment for the water revenue bonds, the portion of the water revenue bonds that TID 6 is paying. And you can see that it's still, expected to be able to generate enough increment to pay off that debt, as well as the existing debt and other expenses. and close within its existing life in 2035. The next slide is TID 7 cash flow. Similarly, this one has a little bit more involved. So, there's the one existing debt issue in TID 7 right now. These borrowings would bring 3 additional borrowings into TID 7, and we were able to build those issues as well as the rest of the expenses for TID 7 and show again that there's enough increment to pay those and close, projected to close early in 2031. Wow, it's hard for me to read these at this point. So, and then the next slide is a bond coverage test. When you issue water revenue or any other revenue-backed security, you're required to typically show coverage at about 1.25 times the annual debt service. This shows as of the 2020 audit that the water utility revenue is very much sufficient to cover what we're proposing for debt service going forward. So you can see 2022, that's the existing debt, that 88,000, the revenues clearly cover that. And then, 23 is this new debt coming into the utility and showing about 2.14% or 2.14 times coverage. And you see that through the life of that debt, it never dips below that 1.25 requirement. So that's the presentation, and that's kind of all we have. If you have any other questions, though, happy to.
So before questions, what you're looking for tonight is to do a positive recommendation to the village board for a parameter sale for all 4 issuances
Correct.
of the bond?
Correct, yes.
Okay. Trustee Myers?
TIF 7 is speaker, is that correct?
Correct.
If I remember right, going back some time, the virus gets me out of place as far as keeping time frames. But weren't we negotiating something with them in regard to the amount of payment that they were supposed to make because of the way it was structured?
Yes, the development agreement with JW Speaker related to Tax Increment District 7 has some guarantees in for construction and assessed values, which, based on the conversations we've had with them, they're not going to meet those requirements. And the provision in the development agreement is that then they would make cash payments to the village to make up the difference. And there are a couple of things that happen. One, to help secure TID 7, the boundaries were expanded and capstone was included. So that gives the village board a lot more flexibility. It has been a while since the village attorney and I have talked with JW Speaker about this, but we did have some preliminary discussions, and it's something we need to get back on the radar screen to follow up with them and work through that. 2024 is, I believe, when that provision takes effect. So there is a little bit of time before that hits, but and I think that there are some solutions that would probably work out well for the village and work out for JW Speaker as well.
Yeah, I was wondering because I haven't heard anything in regard to disposition in this matter. So now that you've talked about the 2024, it's quite obvious there's some time to work with them in regard to this. In regard to water revenue bond coverage, these rates that we're talking about for payment and so on and so forth, does that put in mind in regard to the rates that we just approved? So there would be enough money to put in there to cover that aspect?
These are using 2020.
These are using 2020 numbers, so they do not include the new rates. So these numbers the coverage ratios will be better with the new rates once we're able to show what the experience from a few quarters that we're able to get the actuals. Those numbers should be better than they're reflected in this chart.
That's what I was hoping you said that because, thank you. I don't have any questions.
Anyone else? I'm looking for a motion for Positive recommendation to the village board for a parameter sale on all 4 issuances of notes.
Make that,
You
go
got
ahead.
it?
Go ahead, please.
Okay, I'll make that
Ladies
motion
first.
to send it on to the village board with positive recommendation.
That'd be the second on my part.
All right. We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion, questions, anything like that? Is this on tonight?
No, this will be on April 4th.
Okay. Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. Let me get back to my. Okay, that covers all new business and we have no unfinished business. So with that, we'll move to the reports. Monthly financial summary, year-to-date revenues and expenses, reports on all funds. Questions on that? Any discussion? Right, if not, we'll move to accounts payable. February 25th, March 4th, March 11th, March 13th, and snuck in March 3rd. Oh, no, March 3rd refunds, I'm sorry. Wrapped around the line. Those are still the refunds from the taxes, is that right? Nothing there? Trustee Myers.
My normal question to Deanna. Are we just about close to the refunds?
We've completed the refunds at this point.
This would be the total. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Okay, with that, we'll move to code violations. Any change on those?
Yes, there are changes on the second page. I'm sorry, there is one additional. I'm trying to find which one is. Maybe it's just the formatting here. Looking at the dates on this, I don't believe there are any changes from last month.
Okay.
Taking a moment to look over it, if I can, please.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a question. I'm just
Trustee
curious.
Kaminsky.
Where's this wedding venue?
Yeah, it's good to ask that question. Thank you.
I can't picture where that might be on Appleton Avenue.
And actually, this was one where the community development director was here at the last meeting, and I remember him speaking about that.
Oh, okay.
It's,
I forgot.
I believe it's on the, I don't know if we can tell from the address, if that's on the west side of the road. And I believe it was just kind of an outbuilding where there's been some, it was initially just a small thing with a family wedding, or it's kind of grown a little bit after that, and it's become an issue. I could get some more information from the.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Right, the property owner actions next to it, I think are inappropriate, though. They relocated the coop and installed fences for the roosters.
That's actually a typo, isn't it? That
I
should
think
be on
so.
the second.
I think
one.
so.
Yeah.
If I may, just going back to the first one that Terry was talking about,
Yes.
I'm trying to, is that pass, calling it North Pass Landon Road, where they have the,
I think so.
Yeah. Yes. If I
hey, is that
remember
the west
correctly-
side?
If I remember correctly, it is past Landon Road.
Okay.
And I'm remembering my street numbering, my house numbering nomenclature. I believe odd numbers are on the west side of the road.
So my next question would be, is it north or south of Amy Bell Road?
It'd have to be north, wouldn't it?
I ain't assuming nothing, because I can't think any on.
The Moose Lodge.
I tell you
I'll
what,
have
I
to-
tell you what, let's
yeah.
go, let it go.
Hey, I can look it up on the map if you.
No, that's fine. Let's just move.
I apologize.
I'll talk to you tomorrow about this. That's fine. Curiosity. kill the cat, whatever. Now look at these other ones here.
It is a little bit south of Mequon Road, or where Mequon Road would be on 175.
South.
A little bit south on the west side of the road.
Mequon Road is south. Dang it. I don't know.
North of, is it Meeker Hill Drive that goes straight up the hill?
Yeah, the Beaker Hill goes
north of
straight up
that.
the hill. Is it north of that? That makes it even worse. All I know is a car dealership over there.
Yeah, it's got to be pretty close to that.
I don't know where they got it. Whatever. Tomorrow. Ain't worth it.
Okay. Anything else on code violations?
Moment, please. Not at this time, thank you.
All right, if not, we will move to item C, capital data IT report update.
Got Aaron again.
Okay, before I bring Eric up here, I just wanted to give an update on both the Channel 25 issue as well as the AV equipment in this room. So right now I'm working with Spectrum for the Channel 25. Right now our fiber optic silver bar is way outdated and they can't find a replacement for it. And so Spectrum is suggesting we go with the Drake encoder. They have not given us a final number on it, but it's going to be about $5,000, but it's going to also take about 5 months to install.
geez.
So, so I just wanted to let you know that this is going to be a process, but they did say that this Drake encoder will be capable of handling multiple inputs, sources, and technology types, and will be monitored 24/7 by their engineers. So we should be in a better place once this happens, but they're right now going through the assessment process. With the AV equipment, they were here last Thursday. They rebooted our video switch, moved our Wi-Fi, and resoldered a microphone. So, and then they were in here again today because our wires weren't working. So we're in the process of getting that fixed as well. But I wanted to let everybody know where we were in this process. And then Eric will come up to talk about all the rest of our fun IT stuff.
All right, and while Eric's walking up, what is the process for this new box from Spectrum? I mean, and the question is that this is providing our feed to Spectrum customers only. And spending $5,000 on that, I would really question that versus live streaming or something like that. We may need to review this before we go ahead.
Oh, yeah. And this is not saying that we're going to even do it. They're just coming in, assessing the situation and giving us a quote. Like they haven't even gotten that part done. And it's been almost a month since we started discussing this.
All right, good evening, everyone.
Even
Thank you
Eric.
for the pleasure of having me over here. So maybe off the top, if anybody has any questions before I step in, or we just go in with the presentation. And
Let it roll.
Right ahead.
all right, so first off, we have some traffic lights over here just indicating the health of the environment. You could say over here is focused more on Village Hall. We see that the primary technologies of email and Active Directory, which is what provides security, the primary user security and authentication processes for the village, those are working good. They're in good health, and that was majorly done more in preparation for the process that the village is undergoing right now with the migration of the emails to the cloud. So everything had to be standardized and everything had to be under control before we did that. Of course, we have some little cautionary tales and a little bit of a red lights there on the DR backups and the storage department. These are all tied, these are deficiencies that we knew coming into the engagement, but they are already in the process of getting upgraded. The village already has approved projects which will bring substantial overhaul to the DR and the backup stage, as well as the storage stage, and will also provide improvements to the virtual environment as well. I think that the last thing that would be up for debate, and that is part of the data-driven analytics that Capital Data has performed for the village. And I don't know, have they been provided a copy of that? Okay, so copy pending, but that was just recently discussed with Aaron, and I believe Steve was part of the discussion as well. In there, we talk about a more holistic plan of how we envision to overhaul the whole environment. This one. The second one focuses more on the police department. If you could see a trend, both are in good standing on the Active Directory and Exchange, which are the email and authentication services. Backups and the disaster recovery, storage and virtual environments, they all have cautionary tale. Most of the cautionary tales that we see there are just equipment that is out of warranty. Right now, if those equipment would go down, you wouldn't have a vendor to call to get support on that equipment. And depending the type of damage that the equipment has suffered, we may or may not be able to repair it. And
If I can
Yeah.
just interject a significant portion of what Eric just described is what we presented to the village board as part of the $125,000 for the Pro Phoenix upgrade to get that hardware up and running. We see a lot of yellow and red. We are taking steps, and the village board is helping us move along and trying to address some of those things.
yes, sir.
Now, that's the money that came from ARCA, correct? That we put in, or am I wrong?
Yes, that was some ARPA funding to try to get some of the pieces of equipment that are out of warranty upgraded when we're installing the new Pro Phoenix system.
What percentage would that have been, what we added, shall we say?
What percentage will the money that was added, what
Right,
percentage will that
with that
address?
125,000 that you talked about?
That will address all of the issues related to Pro Phoenix, which is one of the key systems. That will provide all the funding to upgrade all of the equipment related to Pro Phoenix.
The only thing that bothers me in regards to this, because I didn't quite understand that, and if we wouldn't have approved that, doesn't sound very good to me. Sorry. And nothing against Matthew and his presentation, but
Nope.
Just understanding that now, and what Eric just mentioned, that kind of bothers me. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just taking some notes. Yes, there is an investment that was recently approved that is for the Pro Phoenix side. Now, I believe, and let me double check if I have that right here. I believe that also, there is, part of that investment will also include some flexibilities that will trickle into the village hall as well. So it's not only this whole project with the fire department and the police department and the village hall, it's also bringing into a consolidation wherever possible. There are things like, for example, in the fire department and the police department where it's going to have to be separated because of CGIS and other regulatory compliances. But there are going to be some hardware that's going to be able to serve all three major aspects of the community, not like they have it today where everything is segregated.
In addition, the backup piece was approved prior to the ARPA funds and all that.
Yep.
So that's another piece of it that was already done.
Then over here, it's a little bit little. Normally we go this on smaller meetings and smaller screens. But here we're just talking about the progress that we've had, and maybe again, we go into a little bit of a deeper detail of the things that we've accomplished and also the things that we've see that are pending. So in the Village Hall, I would say that the biggest concerns regarding this screen are, of course, like we said, the backups and the disaster recovery. Right now, though backups are running, the software is out of license right now because there's no support for it. But at the same time, we already have that backup project approved, which in time, once we receive the equipment and we got the licensing and the software already in, we should be able to replace these expediently and start a new process, which hopefully if things start walking soon, by next month or April to May, you start seeing a better outlook on your disaster recovery and your backup procedures, putting those all automatically into green in most of the environments. We also have been doing substantial work, like we said, with the Active Directory and the emails. Right now, we are undergoing our email migration, so everybody's accounts are being migrated to the cloud. We stood up a new government backed tenant with Microsoft, which provides added security. We've enabled multi-factor authentication for all the accounts out of the bat, which will help with the protection of ransomware, protection of phishing, of account phishing that is happening. So people will have more flexibilities accessing their emails. Whoever's approved can access their emails from the Microsoft portal or from their approved Village device. But they will, if they do it from the Microsoft portal, they will be challenged automatically by the multi-factor authentication. So that adds us a good layer of protection as we've started to move forward with modernizing the environment. Next, the bigger concerns, I would say, across the hall is just the networking devices on all three segments. So Village Hall, Police Department, and the Fire Department. A lot of the networking equipment is out of date and out of support. We're looking into options to provide to the village to make the better investments and to make also a wiser decision of where we should maybe extend support or where we need to make investments on newer technologies where able. And this is, okay. Most of this, I won't want to maybe entertain a lot of topics there, but it's things that you guys could submit any questions to us via Aaron or via Steve or even directly to us, and we are glad to entertain any specifics once the presentation has been appropriately reviewed. Now, this is February that we're talking. We go a month behind on our accomplishments, so next month you'll see the accomplishments for March. But on February, these were the major accomplishments or major milestones that we stepped in. We were able to reconfigure the Village Hall VPN. It was running a depreciated software, which started having a lot of issues with newer laptops that were being purchased or operating systems that were being upgraded. So we were able to upgrade the VPN utilizing the current system that we have, the current firewalls, and offering a little bit more protection because we moved it to a non-standard port and we upgraded the security and the encryption that it's utilizing. We've also provisioned the Microsoft tenant, like we said. We got rid of some little headaches with some commercial grade family plans that were being utilized to license the Microsoft endpoints in the village. There was a lot of people, especially in the fire department and Village Hall, that were utilizing commercial grade accounts to activate the office applications. This puts you in a non-compliance in case of audits, plus it's also an added expense that it's no longer needed. And you also have, you don't have the grade of security that your government tenant will offer you. With this current process, and the government tenant being provisioned and everybody's being synchronized, we're able to bring you into the fold of better security and no headaches in terms of activation problems every couple of weeks like we've been seeing. We've already started like we said, our process of migrating. Many of the Village Hall users are starting to be migrated to the cloud. We're expecting that to finalize sometime early April, mid-April, that where everybody and then now has Office 365 in the cloud. That will start opening doors to better technologies, especially in the security aspect. We'll have better technologies to offer for the antivirus. We'll have better technologies to offer also for video conferencing, like, for example, leveraging Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, and other collaboration technologies, which were cost prohibitive and technology prohibitive prior to this. And then we also started, and we just finalized this recently. We started our process of configuring alerting on hardware. So we're going to be talking soon on who's going to be receiving those alerts. These are alerts to let people know that if the village is, if a certain server is down, we could respond automatically and not have to wait till the next day that somebody call us for those emergencies. Questions? Right, so this is just our ticket performance. I like to put this just to be fully transparent. This is our February numbers. That we took in a total of 21 new tickets, and we were able to resolve 16. So there's a deficit of 5 tickets that are out there. Sometimes it's just tickets pending update, or just tickets that are still in flight, depending on responses and from either side. Up to now, a lot of the tickets that we've been receiving are tickets that in some cases have merited a lot of background. There hasn't been much documentation, and we are trying to document and also figure out the problem, document it, and then also determine the best course of action for each one. When you come into a non-standard environment, we don't want to just put a Band-Aid and immediately resolve the ticket just as is. We want to make sure that we're taking best practices into consideration, and we're bringing you up and elevating the service. And Aaron has been great on partnering with us on that one. So then the next one is just our ticket performance year to date. So we've tackled 71, since January, we've tackled 71 requests and 51 completed. There's 16 still in flight, so that's compounded with the 5 that we saw earlier. So there's a lot of work to do, and there's still work to do every day, but you could see that we're making progress. This is our hours. Right now, on the left side is the infrastructure. This one is the one where we just handle things that need to be improved from an infrastructure perspective. So it's not end user facing. It's things that will impact end user, you could say, experience, but it's not facing the end user itself, like server migration, server fixes, environment constitutions, things like that. And then on the right side is more of the service desk. Those are the hours that are being spent with users online. Then this is just a project portfolio, things that we have in flight right now, like we just mentioned a lot. The Exchange Online project that is currently in flight, and that's going well. We should be on time on that one. Then we just got the backup replacement and the ProPhoenix replacement approved by the board, so we'll be in the process. I know that the ProPhoenix just started to get in the process of being ordered. I need to double check where the backup is, but those have been approved. And then we have some other major workloads like RecTrack. We've had some situations where currently the certificate is expired on the site, and that's been impacting users because they have to bypass it by pressing that they understand that the certificate is expired. We're working with RecTrack and also with the certificate authority to get that resolved. But again, it's been a little bit of learning as we go on all the pieces of the puzzle. And then we're also working and assisting in the migration with Tyler for the financial system migrations. We started already providing everything that Tyler has been requesting, and that project has been going well so far. And with that, any questions?
Yeah, as far as the email transitioning to the cloud,
Yeah.
Are all the mailboxes going to require multi-factor, or just the Active Directory users? Like trustees aren't AD users, are they?
Yes, they are.
They are?
Yep.
Look at us.
Because it's synchronized. We're going to be synchronizing. They're not cloud-only accounts, so all of them will require
They'll
multi-factor.
require MFA,
Yes.
all right. Company portal, is that same thing as I use at my office?
No, because that's Intune. That will be coming later on into the Intune piece for the policies. Right now, it's just going to be pure Microsoft multi-factor. So it's just going to use the Microsoft Authenticator.
Okay. Any other questions?
If I could just add one thing, and first of all, thank you to Capital Data, Eric, for being here and for the work they've been doing with us. Also, just for the village employees who are listening, this has been, all of these changes is always a little bit painful. And as we've been going through, it's been frustrating at times. So definitely appreciate all of the efforts that the village staff, and Aaron has been leading that, but a lot of patience and effort by village staff to make sure that things keep up and running as we try to work through and make the improvements that are necessary to our systems.
71 tickets in a year to date that's a lot of volume right now. So hopefully that'll shrink.
And that's what we're hoping. We're hoping that as we start moving the village forward technologically and we start getting all the best practices, that number was going to shrink over time and it's just going to be minor requests and maybe some break fix here and there. So we estimated this coming into the deal. We know that this is what needs to get done in order to service the village best as we can. And we welcome that opportunity in every way we can.
Good. Anything else? Thanks, Eric. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
With that, we will move on to scheduling our next meeting, which should be the 18th of April at 6 p.m. Is everybody okay with that? Right. So we'll schedule for the 18th at 6 p.m. And with that, we will adjourn.